Hi everyone, Helen Blunden here at Activate Learn on Twitter. Now this time I have got a non-fiction book to review. Thought it was time for a change to get back slowly into non-fiction. And this book is Seeing What Others Don't, The Remarkable Ways We Gain Insights by Gary Klein. Now why did I come up with this book? Well, this book was actually gifted to me and it has been sitting on my shelf out the back there for a few years, and it recently came up in my Twitter feed, and whenever people talk about this book they rave about it, and so there was always a lot of positive tweets about the book and the value that it had given many people. So this time around, about some days ago, I saw it again in my Twitter feed. People were talking about it. And I thought to myself, well, if they're talking about it, if it comes up in my Twitter feed, now's the time to read it. There's no rhyme or reason about how I read books. It's effectively sometimes I just kind of pick them out of my shelf and just read them, or if I see patterns with people talking about them, I'll pick them out and read them. Or if someone highly recommends them who is not in my network but somehow had gained such a lot of value from a book, I'll read it. So this was really interesting for me because we have been talking a lot about being able to expand our networks, broaden our insights, and now is the time for us to do so. And I guess being inside with COVID has also really thrown into flux a lot of the things that we thought were normal in the past, but now we're actually questioning a lot of things we do. Similar to that is I've noticed a lot of people, especially my network, who are closing down the social networks, who are getting off social media, who are stopping showing and sharing their work out loud for whatever reason. And I'm also struggling to try and find people who blog, who vlog, who create and share value. So I'm constantly filtering filtering the tweets and the lists and my social networks just to try and get lots of good content to come to me, because I feel as if I'm missing insight. Now, when I read this book, I immediately thought, and you could see how I have flagged, well, I do like to write in the book and I like to crack the spines. Sorry about that to these people who don't do that. But as I was reading the book, the very first chapter, I loved the story of two policemen in their car. They are sitting behind another car, a nice luxury car, and they notice from the car in front of them that the guy's smoking a cigarette and then kind of tapping the ash in the inside of the car. And that's when they understood, hang on, that car's not his. No one would smoke a cigarette if you've got a really nice car and just treat your car like an ashtray. And so they had this insight that he had stolen the car, and indeed he did. So that immediately set the context for the book. And as I was reading it, I thought to myself, where's he going with this? Because, get this, there was a whole heap. So what Gary Klein did, he's a researcher. In fact, he's a research psychologist famous for his part in founding the field of naturalistic decision-making, and a senior scientist at macrocognition. He was one of the leaders of a team that redesigned the White House Situation Room, and he's the author of several books, including The Power of Intuition and Streetlights and Shadows. Okay, so as I was reading this book, his premise was that he wanted to dispel or kind of set forth an alternative framework by a guy by the name of Waller, I think it was. Sorry, I'm just looking at my notes on the other thing. So there was another framework for creating insights, and he wanted to kind of present an alternative theory. Now, the way he did it was he came up with 120 situations, 120 cases that had happened in history, medicine, finance, in the world of politics. So these are situations that had happened in the past, and also he melded in some of his own situations. And he kind of looked at that situation and he teased it apart and he came up with what was known as his triple path model. And the triple path model has three elements that he says insights have. The first one is contradiction, that we've got to look at and be aware of the contradictions that come our way. The second one was connection, which is all about those coincidences that happen. And when you spot an implication, it means that you have kind of like a new anchor or a new thought point. And then the third one was creative disruption, which is basically coming to a situation where you simply don't know how to act or what to do, and you go and do something completely different. Now, he's basically saying that this triple path model, in order for us to improve our chances of gaining insights, we really need to be open to new surprises and be willing to take them really seriously, and especially when they go against our beliefs, they go against our value system, and they somehow irk us in some way. So we've got to try and be cognizant and aware of the contradictions, the connections, and also doing something completely different that will help us increase our insights. Now, I started to question this book because the more I was reading it, the more I was thinking, it's just going into history. I mean, we're learning about Napoleon, we're learning about, what the US Navy did in some situations, and what, in politics or camera companies. And I thought to myself, where's the real stuff? I just really wanted to get to the guts of the book. I just wanted him to really tease out the triple path model. Instead, that triple path model was enveloped in stories. So if you're looking for a book that just goes straight to the heart of the matter of the triple path model with none of the stories, you're not going to find it. You have to actually read the stories to understand what he's trying to say and how he explains a triple path model. So people did rave about this book, and I must admit, part of me was thinking, I just want it to go to the guts of what he's trying to say here. Towards the end, the last chapter is pretty much a summary of the entire book. You can basically read the last chapter to understand the book. But what I did was I also read a few different articles by different people who could tease out this triple path model, because it was all ingrained in stories. Now, if you like stories, power to you, then this is a book for you. If you don't, if you just want the facts, if you just want to get to the heart of the matter, then I suggest you kind of do just a search on the triple path model and try and read what he and what others have come up with it. So what did I think of the book? Look, I didn't mind it. I'm glad I read it. There was a lot there that made me understand about insights, but it also made me realize that the reason he did the 120 cases in the history is the fact that how can you identify these insights in real life unless you physically really remember them? I mean, I know that I've gone through work and I've come up with my aha moments, but then I really struggle to think what they were unless I have blogged about them, unless I've written them down or captured them in some way. They're kind of lost until someone kind of triggers that memory. And usually for me, it's people who have come up and asked me, how on earth did you make that connection from X to Y? Why did you go about doing this? Because we didn't understand how you got from A to B and then C. So there have been times in my life where, if I really think about it, I have had people come up to me saying, how do you make the connections that you do? And that's when I realized, oh my God, I did have insights. I just failed to pick up on them. And that is the reason why Gary Klein used historical context, historical stories to be able to tease them out. Now, some of the other things that was kind of like a really interesting one for me was this mentioning of Six Sigma. I remember many years ago, Six Sigma in the early 90s was the thing. We were rolling it out in organizations. I work for corporates, and Six Sigma was the be-all and end-all. It was all about reducing errors as much as possible. But Six Sigma really hurt companies. Why? It's because in the reduction of errors, you basically filtered any opportunity to have any real insight, because you were completely focused on minimizing errors and reducing any I guess, alternative thinking or different ways and perspectives of being able to do a process. And so the talk about Six Sigma in Gary Klein's novel was really interesting for me, because it was something that I could relate to, but I hadn't thought about the opposite effect, which then made me start to realise that sometimes organisations do put in holus bolus, big massive cultural programs, or programs like Six Sigma, Agile. What else is there? I remember those old TQM days, remember total quality management, without really thinking, what is the impact of these programs down the track? So, very interesting book. Yes, I would recommend it. Seeing What Others Don't, The Remarkable Ways We Gain Insights by Gary Klein. Read it, let me know what you think. Okay then, bye for now.